You're listening to Closing Market Weekly, the show where real estate closings meet real world insight. With your host, Phillip Hogan, and every week we break down the trends, tools, and the timing that keeps deals moving forward. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Phillip Hogan, host of Closing Market Weekly. Many of you may know me as the CEO of Signing Services of America. Since 2016, I've worked with hundreds of professionals across the mortgage and real estate space, from title agents and escrow officers to lenders, titles, and notaries. One thing I've noticed in this industry, we often talk to each other, but not with each other. That's why Closing Market was created, to offer a space for honest, practical conversations about the real issues, challenges, and trends shaping the closing industry. My today's guest is someone who I've met while doing a scuba diving trip, and we'll talk about that as we get deeper into the show. But let me go ahead and read his very impressive bio. Craig Robinson is a seasoned chief executive, board director, and advisor for global real estate business services and technology companies. Over his 25-year career, Craig has developed a reputation for creative energy and bold thinking he brings to unlocking and sustaining high-performing organizations. His background and leadership style are well suited for boardrooms facing significant growth, business transformation, and disruptive technologies. Craig is currently an independent board director for Lesson, Roofstock, and Second Nature. He also serves on the audit and comp committees for Lesson and Roofstock, respectively, and has significant experience leading global public company divisions during IPOs and MA and digital transformation and periods of complex change. Craig currently serves as a strategic advisor for Dunes Point Capital, a private investment firm investing in the business service and industrial sectors, as well as an advisor to a number of early stage growth companies in the sustainability, construction, and data analytics sectors. Craig has significant international experience from managing global teams, P&Ls, and key corporate functions, including legal, HR, technology, and risk. He has also negotiated outsourcing agreements that span regions and upon labor concerns, and has large scale development experience in markets like China and Japan. Early in his career, Craig has also lived and worked in Belgium for Arthur Andersen Business Consulting, where he was an ERP consultant. Craig currently resides in his hometown, Atlanta, Georgia, where he is an active volunteer for democracy, voting rights organizations, and a passionate art collector and a master scuba diver. Craig, welcome to the show.
Hey man, it's so great to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh my goodness, you're more than welcome, man. And what a wonderful background you have, Craig. And to have met you when we were on the scuba diving trips, we got to jump
Yeah,
right. We got to jump
yeah,
right, right into it, right? I mean, how wild could that be? Where you're now a host. I mean, you're now a guest on my show that started from doing the thing that we love the most, which is scuba diving.
that's right, man. The world is smaller and smaller and smaller each day. You never know who you're going to meet when you get on a boat and jump into 100 foot of water. It might be your next podcast host. Yeah, so there it goes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so I think that's really great. And then you also a master scuba diver. So would you share with the audience what's the difference between, a person who becomes an open water diver and a master scuba diver?
Well, again, it's wonderful to just connect with someone who shares your passion, and this is a passion, scuba diving, I've had for a number of years. But a lot of folks will try something and put their toe in the water, proverbially and literally, but not really commit to getting better and better and trying new places to dive. And so ultimately, there is this progression where you get in, you try diving. Sometimes we call that a discovery dive. And if you like it, then you get certified as an open water diver. And then there's these stair steps that you take along the way where you get better and better at different skills. And so the master scuba diver is 2 levels below instructor. And I've been diving now for almost 7 or 8 years and probably about 500 log dives. So it's a passion.
Oh my goodness. And it's a wonderful accomplishment once you have acquired that master scuba diver certification, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and so I think that it's, obviously I love talking about the sports. So I got to give a segment in my show to talk
Yeah.
about, what's something I love to do when I'm not working or in the show. I'm out diving
Absolutely.
someplace in a body of water anywhere in the world. And the wonderful thing also is to be able to meet great people who, enjoy the passion as well as you do.
Yeah.
So as we transition through the show, Craig, this is a show about the mortgage industry and those that work within the mortgage industry.
Sure.
And so share with our audience where you actually began your role in the mortgage industry.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've been in the real estate industry more broadly since around 2000. So call it about 25 years or so. And if you've been in this industry for as long as you and I have, then you know that you've got to move around to weather the ups and downs of cycles. So I've done a lot of things over the course of that 25 years. I started off really focused on the occupier corporate real estate with a company called Trammell Crow. And this was during the time in the early 2000s where the industry was going through a lot of consolidation. So a lot of local boutiques were becoming regional companies were becoming national companies were becoming global companies. And I had a chance, Phil, to be a part of working with companies that just grew through consolidation. So, went from doing sales and marketing to over time doing general management, running national businesses, running global businesses. And most of the companies that I ran were selling real estate services, brokerage, property management, project management, capital markets, financing to owners and occupiers of real estate. Now, keep in mind, this was mostly commercial real estate, office buildings, industrial, retail, land, hotels. But in the latter years, Phil, I have transitioned to doing a lot more on the technology side and dealing a lot more with residential, where there's a lot of innovation happening. It's $1 trillion industry, as you and I know. And I'll just say this in kind of in summary, if I were to say half my career was spent on the analog
Mm.
side of real estate, the blocking and tackling of doing deals and working on transactions and managing and working with brokers. In one of my roles, I was responsible for 3,000 brokers in the U.S., um, thousands of property managers, but it was doing it the old fashioned
Way.
way with a pen and a pad and Excel spreadsheets. Now, this side of my career, I'm much more focused on all of the software and the technology and the innovation that's allowing us to do the things we've always done, but do it faster, more efficiently, more cost effectively, and with better outcomes.
And so that's wonderful, Craig. And so we're talking about pivoting, right?
Yeah.
And so at what point in your career did you realize that it was time to pivot, or the desire to pivot had come upon you and therefore you made the shift?
Yeah. Listen, I do think, we all have a mindset. You've heard mindset as a way to describe whether people have an abundance mindset,
Mm.
surplus mindset, or a scarcity mindset. The same is true when it comes to innovation. Some people will see change happening in and around them
Mhm.
and they'll wish it away. They'll pretend it's not happening. They'll think that it's going to pass like a fad. And then there's some people who will see those things as leading indicators of things to come.
Mm.
When I started to see how technology was first and foremost starting to transform other industries, real estate is, and I'm going to come back to it, real estate is an industry that has lots of inefficiencies, lots of intermediaries. Lots of paper gets changed hands. There are people who insert themselves in roles as intermediaries, but there's also information asymmetry. How do markets clear? We generally need brokers to help markets connect. So there's just so many things that happen. And guess what? Real estate wasn't the only industry. We've seen that in healthcare. We've seen that in government. We've seen that in a lot of other spaces. And I saw how technology was starting to rapidly transform the way people shop, as an
Mhm.
example.
Mhm.
And there were some retailers who wanted to imagine e-commerce was going to go away. And there were some like Amazon who capitalized on that and
Mhm.
really became a part of the next wave. In probably the 2008, 2009 or so,
Mhm.
uh, I started seeing that happening in our industry. I could
Mm.
see a number of investors were starting to fund entrepreneurs who had ideas around how to make real estate processes move better,
Mhm.
how to make markets connect more efficiently,
Mhm.
how to connect someone who needs debt with someone who invests debt more quickly.
Mm.
And while it was still kind of in the early stages, I thought that this was a trend that was likely going to be around for a while. And so I got involved first and foremost as an observer, just paying attention, reading articles, thinking about it. Then I started to be an advisor as guys and gals who wanted to start companies. They didn't know anything about real estate. They didn't have any of the experience that you have, Phil, but they knew about software and technology.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, hey, if I could build this thing, do you think people in the real estate world would buy it?
Mm-hmm.
And they would come to people like you and I and ask for advice. So I started off as just an advisor,
Mm-hmm.
but then over time I got really passionate that this is the thing that was going to really
So
take off.
let's stop there for a second, Craig. So that's really, I'm glad you said that, the passion. And I think
Yeah,
that, we have to understand that, what are the triggers that gets a person to make a decision to turn left, right, or stay where they are. And
that's right.
I believe based upon what you said, that the underpinning action or the underpinning feeling is, I'm passionate about, what it is that I want to do,
That's right.
or I'm passionate about the importance of doing something different because my calling, I'm not responding to my calling. And it sounds like technology in the real estate space is something that you're passionate about and responded to your calling.
I do. But I would just say to people who are listening and watching your show, you may not have a passion for technology, for example, or
Right.
AI, which is a thing that's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that you can't be curious.
Mm.
You don't need to have passion to take advantage of things that are going on. You only need to be
Be
curious.
curious. Okay.
Be curious. And I think curious leads, it will beget passion if it is aligned with your purpose, if it is aligned with your call. And it doesn't have to be. I think, for example, we'll talk about this. AI is going to have a profound impact, not only on our industry, but a profound impact on our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not necessarily, you know, need to invest in being proficient in how to use AI necessarily, but you don't want to be caught off guard by it either. And you want to be thinking about how this stuff. So I would just say, before I was passionate, Phil, I was curious,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what led me to reading and thinking and listening to podcasts and hearing what people were doing, and then curiosity leads to learning, and learning begets change in your life.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so you also mentioned that you are a board member.
Yeah,
And let's talk a little bit about your role. Well, first of all, what boards do you serve on? What is your
yep,
role in those boards? And how did
yep.
that come into the play as to where you are in your career today, Craig?
Yeah. Well, let me just, for people who may be less familiar with boards, you may have heard boards. You might be, a supporter of a nonprofit and know that different organizations have boards. But in the corporate arena, most companies of a certain size, whether they're private or public, will have a board. And that board has a fiduciary governance responsibility to make sure that the investors in that company, their shareholders, that their capital, is being taken care of, and the company's doing the right things by those investors. It's operating transparently, is complying with the laws and regulations, but it's also doing things strategically that are going to help that company to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO will oftentimes have a board
Mm-hmm.
that they report to, that is there for advice, but also there for governance. And I had no idea, Phil, that this was even a thing. I didn't even know boards existed. I didn't know you can get paid to be on boards. I didn't know that there were different types of boards. But as I started to be in a position where I was running national business and global businesses, and running businesses that were public, I began to appreciate that there were boards that had a really important role. And then I just said, how do you get on a board?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. How do you get on a board? So to answer your question, I'm on 3 boards now, but I have served on 4 private company boards that were either venture backed, meaning venture capitalists owned the company, or private equity backed,
Mm-hmm.
meaning private equity owned the company. And they were range from early stage, companies that were making a few $1,000,000 to companies that were making $1 billion plus. And so they range in terms of their complexity. So I'm on the board of a company called Roofstock, which is a company that helps you buy and sell SFRs, single family rentals,
Mm-hmm.
uh, BTRs, build to rents. and it's now also too in the short-term rental space as well. And it provides a market for you to buy and sell and manage those types of properties. I've been
Hmm.
on their board for almost 6 years. I'm also on the board of a company called Second Nature, which provides software, resident benefit software solutions to residential property managers. So when you think about moving into your home, how do you have your electricity gets cut on, your renter's insurance, all of the benefits that you would want, like from an ISP provider, credit reporting, all of that gets bundled together into what they call a benefit package. And this company provides that to property managers so that they can provide it to tenants. And the last board I'm on is a company called Lesson, and they provide property management, tech-enabled property management to residential and commercial properties, and they're about $1 billion. So it's a complete range, Phil.
Hmm. And so what I'm hearing, with that range is that it's still within the real estate space. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. These are
Yeah.
all companies that are serving the residential primarily
Yeah. A-
space.
and so the significance here that I really want to highlight, Craig, is that many people think that when you work within a real estate space that you are a real estate broker or a real estate agent. And what you've been able to do is morph or grow from that role, an initial position within the real estate
Yeah.
space on the commercial side, to now you're actually sitting in a board role and
Yeah.
helping to manage and build a company that works within the real estate space. So for
Yeah.
people who are looking to pivot, right, and people looking to realize the real estate business is not what I thought it was. I like to remain in the real estate business. Where else can I go? Well,
Yeah.
you're talking about an avenue that many people may not have considered or even realized is possible.
Sure. Sure. Listen, the industry is so wide, and I tell people who are either just getting into the industry or trying to figure out how to pivot
Yeah.
to one, take a step back, open the aperture, and realize there are lots of different things. There are new asset classes. Yes, there's residential, but there's single family rentals, there's short term rentals, there's you know um, there's data centers, there's public, there's all, first and foremost, there's so many different asset types that are emerging. There are different functions and roles. Yes, I might be a mortgage broker. Yes, I might be a real estate broker, but there's property management, there's facility management, there's project management. And what I realized starting off as an individual producer contributor doing sales and marketing is that over time, what I wanted to do is I wanted to manage teams. I wanted to manage bigger scopes of work. Yes, I like selling and doing work for customers, but it's like, what could I do to manage teams? And then within managing teams, then maybe I could manage a business. And then within managing a business, maybe I could manage a company. And if I could manage a company, maybe I could manage a bigger company. And then as I did more and more of that, there was no different between me and the next person who was doing sales and marketing and doing deals, except for I was curious, what else could you do?
Hmm.
And I started reaching out and taking on and asking for more opportunities, taking chances with companies that needed someone to come in and do more of that stuff for them. And just to specifically answer your question, as I had a chance to run larger businesses and have that experience, then you would find that people who are running companies wanted to benefit from your advice and your perspectives. You've seen that, you've done that.
Hmm.
I'd like to bring you onto my organization, on my board, to help me figure out big, complex decisions because maybe you've seen this, or maybe we're working through an issue you've been through.
Hmm.
I worked for a company called WeWork, which was a big global co-working company, and people know that that was a really exciting company, and it did a lot of great things, but it also went through a lot of trouble and
Hmm.
ultimately had to go through a restructuring, and it lost a lot of value.
Hmm.
Surprising, my experience being a division CEO there was interesting for other startups. They're like, how do we not do what WeWork did? How can we avoid that? How
Right.
can we do that? And so, what I found is that my experience
Hmm.
was going to be helpful for companies,
Hmm.
and the board, either as an advisory board member or either in a corporate board, was a way for me to kind of go and be helpful to those organizations and those CEOs. And a lot of it just starts with being aware that you have something to offer. Something.
Hmm. Hmm.
Imagine a mortgage, a tech company that's going to sell into the mortgage industry. Maybe they need someone who's been in the mortgage business to be an advisor
Right.
to tell them what people will buy and what they won't buy. And that's just really where it starts, Phil.
And so what I'm hearing also, Craig, is thank you for that information, is that really knowing your worth, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean. You got to know, yourself, your accomplishments, and how those accomplishments bring value to another individual or company, and you just have to seek out those individuals who are looking for someone with your type of value, and there is a possible connection. Yes.
Absolutely. I'll summarize this very simply. There are four seasons in your career, and I don't care who you are. Generally speaking, if you're in it long enough, you'll have at least these four seasons.
Right.
The first season of the game
Mm,
is getting in the game.
mm,
How do I get in this game? There are going to be some people who are listening who are trying to figure out how to get into the mortgage industry. How do I get into brokerage? How do I get into property management? How do I get into this? But getting in requires a sponsor. It requires someone to tell you how to get in, open a door, maybe the back door. But getting in is the first step. The second step is staying in. I used to have so many brokers who would start, have a draw, but not make enough deals, not cover their overhead, and then they'd be out in a year or two. And so figuring out how to stay in a game is not an easy thing. So that requires mentorship. That requires studying and learning and watching and observing and coaching. But then getting in the game, stay in the game. The third season is winning the game. It's not enough to stay in the game and stay flat. You got to keep growing.
yes.
You
Get
got to keep,
scale.
yeah. And that's a little bit of what you and I are talking about. Do more,
Hmm.
bigger deals, more complex deals, larger geographies, broader sets of remit that you're responsible for, more compensation, however you define winning. But ultimately, you get to a point where you're winning. Then that comes to the last season, Phil, which is changing the game. When you've earned the right, meaning you've been in the game for a long time, you've been winning, and now I'm going to invite you into a new room, which is like, how do we change the game?
Hmm.
That is really the season that I'm excited about, and I want more people to realize that that's really where you got to get to, but you got to be winning first.
Hmm. I love that. The four seasons of your career.
That's right. Get in the game, stay in the game, win the game, and then finally change
Change
the
the
game.
game. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, Craig, so as we move on through our show here, that's really kind of like the next question I was going to ask you, which is if you had some advice to give someone who was looking to pivot in their life, what would it be?
Well, I'm going to speak specifically to pivoting because, you know, there's two components to pivot. A lot of times people run, but they don't know if they're running to something or from something. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, if I'm unhappy in the role that I have, if I'm not making money, I'm not doing really what I thought I was going to be doing, and I'm just anxious, you're likely to run to anything. Everything becomes like a string of water in the desert, right? And so I would just say the first thing to do before you pivot is to know where you want to pivot to and
hmm.
why.
Okay.
There are three things that go into what I believe should be the place that you want to go to. You have to be able to answer three things. You have to be able to answer, is the thing that I want to go do going to apply and align with my strength? Am I good at it? Second thing, does it give me joy and passion? And the third thing, does it align with my lifestyle? And this has to be a perfect equilateral triangle. What am I good at? What am I excited about? And what gives me the lifestyle I want? If the thing that you want to go do does not play to your strengths, you're not passionate about it, and it doesn't give you the lifestyle you want, it's probably the wrong move. And once you figure that out, Phil, then the question is, how do I pivot? I'll tell you, there are three things that go into a pivot.
Hmm.
Our market value is defined by three P's. The first P is people. Who do you know? Who knows you? Where's your brand? Where's your social network? Your network is a big part of your value. Your book of business, who have you worked with? It's really, really important.
Mm,
The second P is the process. What is the function that you know how to do better than anyone?
hmm.
It could be operations, it could be sales, it could be marketing, it could be project management. Doesn't matter. But over some period of time, that P, the process, the function, you become an expert. The last P is the product. It could be mortgage, it could be resi, it could be commercial, it could be whatever, technology, healthcare, real estate in our case. And these are the three P's: who I know, what I know, and what context do I know it. When I want to pivot, at best, you should try not to change more than one of these a time. So maybe I'm going to stay in the same industry,
Hmm.
but I'm going to just change the function
Hmm.
because you know what? I've earned the right. I have my social network,
Hmm.
and I know this industry really well. I'm going to go from sales to general management.
Hmm.
You can do that. That's a pivot. Or maybe I want to keep what I'm doing, but I want to change where I do it. So the P, my social network, needs to change. I went from New York to move to Atlanta. Maybe I need to reestablish or recreate my network.
Mm-hmm.
The next P is like, well, hey, I love mortgage, I love residential, but maybe I want to try technology. I know sales, I know how to sell, but maybe what I want to do is try selling something different. If you want to change more than one of those at a time, you're going to probably take a step back. And that's okay. If I need to completely overhaul who I am to get in the right lane,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay, but you're going to take a step back. And that might be the right and fastest way for you to pivot. But just know that who I know, what I know, and what context is the market, how the market defines who I am. And when I want to pivot, try to be thoughtful about which one of those you change out as you make a lane change.
Mm-hmm. Well, Craig, I'm so glad that we got you on the show and we're recording this, so we can replay it anytime we want and constantly, live and so like incorporate those nuggets that you shared with us. So
Yes.
finally, Craig, if someone wants to reach out to you and talk more about, pivoting and possibly get you to serve on their board, how would they contact you?
Absolutely. Feel free to follow me on my website, craigmrobinson.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Craig Robinson, easy to find. I'm very responsive, so feel free to ping me on LinkedIn or go to my website and you can find everything you want to know about how to stay in touch.
And tell and
craigmrobinson.com.
share your reps the name of your website again, please.
It's Craig, CRAIG, Robinson.com.
Very good. Okay, great. Well, Craig, listen, man, you have come to the show and you have rocked it.
Hey, man,
So,
it's a
and you share with us such wonderful nuggets, the 4 seasons of your career and the 3 Ps.
mm,
And, folks, I would encourage you to listen to this over and over and over if you are looking to pivot in your career, because you're hearing it from someone who has been extremely masterful at being able to do that. Craig, thank you for coming to the show.
thank you for having me. Hope you'll have me again. Thanks again.
We'd love to. Folks, if you want to follow us, we are on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. And that ends today's episode. And we'll be seeing you next week. Bye now. Thanks for tuning in to the Closing Market Weekly. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone in the industry. For more insights from the front lines of real estate closings, we'll see you next week.